When you have been alone in your spiritual journey for a long time, and then you have this desire to reconnect with other people, to reintegrate into society, sometimes it can feel a little bit awkward. Like when people ask me what I do for a living, and if I mention I'm a spiritual teacher, you can see how people start to feel uncomfortable. Like they may turn their attention to someone else, or they may exit the conversation completely, saying something like, I need to go, I have something on. Most people you interact with will not understand what spirituality is. They will not share the same spiritual language as you, and they will not get your spiritual experiences. If you start talking about spirituality to them, it will scare them away. They will think that you are trying to preach them some religion, ask them to join your religion, or they may think that you're completely crazy. Oversharing will scare some people away. At the same time, if you don't share your spiritual perspective, it may feel very inauthentic to you. I don't know about you, but after spiritual awakening, I find it more and more challenging to withhold what I truly feel in my heart. Even someone like me who used to have people-pleasing tendency, I find it difficult to not say my truth now. Your spiritual perspective naturally comes out during conversation. So how do you balance these two things? How do you socialize again after spiritual awakening? I'll share with you 3 tips that I learned along the way. The first tip is focus on the connection, not the content. Don't focus too much on the words you use. You know, when you talk to another person about spirituality, you don't have to mention words such as like spiritual, twin flame, empath, angel, psychic, light workers, the chosen one, etc. So for example, over time, I realized that if someone were to ask me what I do for a living, I would say that I'm a writer and a content creator. I write blog posts and books that help people connect deeper with themselves. Like, you know how people have this constant mental chatter in their head? I help them to calm their mind and awaken what they truly desire and know in their heart. You don't have to mention anything about spirituality. And this isn't about being fake. This is also not about dumping down for others. I read somewhere people commented about how they need to dumb down when talking to people who aren't spiritually aware. This is the spiritual ego speaking. The thing is, we are not better or more superior than people who are not awakened. People can know nothing about spirituality, and yet they live a better and happier life than someone who does. We're just having a different experience from them. When we are socializing with others, it's more about communication and creating a connection. Communication is a two-way street. It's not just about the communicator, like it's not just about me and what I have to say. It's about the receiver. If your true intention is to connect with another person, you have to make sure that the receiver is able to understand you. I did this a lot when I was a tutor. As a tutor, I must speak in a way that my student will understand me. If they don't understand what I'm saying, I will change to another way of expressing or explaining the same thing. Maybe I'll use simpler words instead of using too many terminology. Maybe I will use an analogy or an example in their daily life which the student can relate to. I will use how many different ways I need to say the same thing so that my student will understand what I'm trying to convey. I'm not dumping down for my student. I'm finding a way to communicate with my student and establishing a connection. It's the same when you're communicating to another person. You want to find a way where you can connect with the other person. You don't want to be sharing all your spiritual knowledge or experiences and then hope someone who didn't have the same experience as you to fully understand what you're talking about. You have to speak in a way that the other person can relate to you. You want to use some of your experience and some of their experience and find a common place where the two of you can connect. The difference though between my job as a tutor and casual socializing is that when you socialize with another person, your role is not to teach someone. We don't get into a conversation to teach someone about spirituality or get them to be spiritually awakened. Even for me, I am a spiritual teacher when I'm here on YouTube, but I'm not a spiritual teacher in my day-to-day life. I'm not a spiritual teacher when I'm with my family and friends or when I'm socializing with others. It's just like how your friend is not an accountant, lawyer, engineer, nurse when you're socializing with them. If your intention is to teach, then you may find that many people will get repelled by your energy because this is not what they're trying to seek in a social setting or in a connection. They are not trying to be your student. Connection can only occur when both of you perceive each other as equal. It's not when one person is above another. So if the other person is not interested in your spiritual experience, then you have to drop it. Or only share your spiritual experience a little bit more when the other person is interested. The second tip that I want to share is try to see spirituality in every person and everything. Oftentimes after spiritual awakening, all we want to talk about is our spiritual experiences. We lose interest in conversation or friends who just want to talk about sports, movies, and hobbies. And I get it, I really get it. Because we are so immersed in the 5D, 5 dimension, that the 3D physical world seems so flat, boring, and meaningless. Your spiritual experience is what occupies your attention all the time. Of course, you want to find someone who you can talk to about your spiritual experiences and someone who understands you. You want to connect with like-minded people and be in a spiritual community. That's totally understandable. However, it's also important not to dismiss those others who aren't spiritually awakened or limit yourself to just spiritual people. Because spirituality is everywhere. You will be amazed by how a conversation that seems to have nothing to do with spirituality will eventually lead to spirituality. Maybe what they say triggers you, and that leads you to a deeper awakening. Like they may be your indirect spiritual teachers. Or maybe when you're talking about a certain movie and there is an underlying theme of spirituality that can be further explored if you go a little bit deeper. Or even if you talk about sports, you can talk about how the athlete get into flow. This is spirituality too, right? When you surrender and tap into the spiritual energy and let it move you, it's just like how a writer feels inspired to write. Everything can somehow point back to spirituality if we just peel off the veil. Like I remember the first time I went to this meetup, I talked about my dark night of the soul experience. I didn't even plan to share something so deep in my first meeting. It wasn't even a spiritual group, and I didn't use any spiritual terms like dark night of the soul, spiritual awakening, or ego death. I just mentioned that there was a time when I was feeling rather depressed and I wanted to kill myself, and how I overcame it. It just came out so naturally during the conversation at the time. And despite the group not being spiritual, I have a deep spiritual connection with people in the group. We share the energy of like oneness and love. So don't make this mistake that you can only talk about spirituality with spiritual people, or you can only connect with people who are spiritually awakened. This is totally not true. A lot of knowledge we have accumulated about spirituality only help us to connect with another person mentally. Words are a construct of the human mind. All this terminology, the shared language we use in our spiritual communities are the labels we give to our experiences. We give it a word and a form so that we can have a common language to share our experiences. It helps us to connect with each other mind to mind, but it doesn't always help us connect with each other spirit to spirit, heart to heart. especially when we talk about something that is very complex and exclusive to a certain group, such that only people in the spiritual community can understand. You kind of alienate other people or disconnect with the majority of the people in the world. This disconnection isn't what spirituality is about. Isn't spirituality about oneness? Doesn't everyone have a spirit? And if this is so, wouldn't there be a way for us to connect with everyone and with their spirit? Sometimes we focus too much on what we are expressing to each other rather than the spiritual connection, what we feel with each other. And this brings me to tip number 3. When you socialize with others, it will be easier to connect with others if you find people who share the same vibration as you, not the same interest and hobby as you. I don't know if you experienced this before. Even when you are in a spiritual community, you may find that you don't resonate with everyone in the same community. It's not just about finding like-minded people who share the same interests as you. It's about connecting deeper with people on a soul level, beyond the mind. People with the same vibrational frequency will naturally attract and connect with each other. Someone who promotes fear will attract people who are fearful to them. Someone who exudes love will resonate with people who are loving. If you go into a conversation wanting to find someone to validate your experience, most of the time you'll be disappointed. Why? Because you come from a place of I want to be understood, which means I feel misunderstood. When you are in the vibrational energy of feeling misunderstood, you will find people who will perpetuate your energy. For example, you keep meeting people who don't resonate with your spiritual experience or who will never understand your spiritual experience. Or when you start sharing your spiritual experiences, they will feel very uncomfortable and go away. Even people with spiritual experiences may avoid you because you have this needy energy of I want to be understood. Please understand me. But if today you socialize with others and you are neutral, you don't care too much about how other people perceive you. You're just open to see what you'll be experiencing today. If people talk to me, good. If people don't talk to me, good too. You don't have to connect with everyone, and you're okay with silence. You also don't feel a need to share too much of your spiritual experiences. You just let it come out naturally, and you just feel comfortable with yourself. Then you will naturally draw people who feel comfortable talking to you, people who match your vibration. It's also important to know that a lot of times after spiritual awakening, we don't have a lot of friends or people talking to us. This is intentional, whether this is conscious to you or not. Yes, as mentioned before, we can try to connect with everyone from a soul level, but that doesn't mean we will want to do so, because their ego may get in the way from the connection. Do we want to go through all this trouble and drama of the ego just to connect with someone? Probably not. After spiritual awakening, many of us become rather picky. And what I mean picky is picky about the vibration, not the person. It's not because we feel superior to the other person or we don't have compassion for them. It's just that our vibration doesn't match. We kind of repel each other. I won't agree with their perspective, and they won't like listening to my spiritual perspective too. So there isn't really a need to interact with each other. I can spend time with people who are in the vibration of fear, blame, and anger. But do I have the desire to do so? Not really. If you're wondering why you don't have friends after spiritual awakening, or why your relationship drift apart, watch this next video over here.